Hi, I'm Marlene. My sister cut me off her birthday guest list after I paid for the entire $4,000 catering. No explanation, no apology, just erased. And my dad? He said, "Don't take it so personally." But that wasn't the first time I was treated like a ghost in my own family. What if I told you? It had been happening for years, just quieter. Want to know how far they went? The phone call lasted less than 20 seconds. "Hey, just a heads up," Kelsey said, voice as flat as ever. "I'm cutting the list down for my birthday. You're off it." There was no hesitation, no room for me to speak. "You're not really family, you know that, right? I mean, you help out, sure, but that doesn't make you part of it." Click. She hung up before I could form a single word. I sat there staring at my phone, the screen still lit with her name, the call timer frozen. I blinked. Once, twice. Then I turned to the open laptop on my kitchen counter. The catering invoice was still up. $4,024.16. Paid, confirmed, non-refundable. I didn't cry. My hands didn't shake. Instead, my chest tightened with a familiar heaviness, one I had trained myself to carry like a badge. I had paid for the entire party, food, drinks, cake, staff, everything. And somehow, I wasn't even worth a folding chair on the edge of the yard. I told myself maybe she'd call back. Maybe it was just a moment of stress. But hours passed, and silence settled over my apartment like ash. I checked the message thread again. Nothing. No apology. Not even a follow-up thanks. I whispered. I thought this would be different, and I meant it. We'd spent the last 6 months awkwardly rebuilding what I thought might be a relationship. I'd helped with bills when the furnace broke, covered her textbooks, even bought the string lights for the backyard she wanted for this party. I told myself every contribution was a step toward something better, toward being seen. And now, I was deleted. A week earlier, Kelsey had called late at night. She sounded sweet even, warm. "I want the food to be amazing," she said. "Can you help me? Maybe even handle the catering?" I had smiled into the dark. "Of course, send me a list of what you want." She did. I spent 3 hours customizing a menu from a boutique company near the Trinity River. I paid in full, and I didn't ask for recognition, not a speech, not a thank you card. I just wanted a seat at the table. But apparently, that seat was never really mine. I stood in my kitchen, pulled my hair back, and stared at the laptop screen. My cursor hovered over the email confirmation. The vendor's number was at the bottom. I didn't hesitate. When the receptionist picked up, I kept my voice steady. "Hi, this is Marlene Ridgway. I need to change the delivery address for the March 16th catering." "Of course," she replied cheerfully. "Same menu?" "Yes," I said. "Same menu, same time, just a different place." "And the new address?" I exhaled slowly. "Hope House Shelter, downtown Fort Worth." She paused. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. "They need it more than people who don't want me there." That night, the quiet in my apartment felt heavier than usual. Not heavy like grief, but like resolve. I folded the printed invoice and slid it into a drawer. I wasn't going to fight for a spot in a family that didn't fight for me. Then my phone buzzed, a text from my father. "Heard about the list. Don't take it so personally. It's just one party." My jaw clenched. My thumb hovered over the reply box. But I didn't type a thing. Instead, I held the phone for a few seconds, watching my hand tremble faintly under the light. Then I deleted the message. No reply. No energy left to explain to people who were never listening in the first place. They removed me from the guest list, so I erased myself from their celebration and gave the feast to people who still know how to say thank you. The morning after I rerouted the catering, I woke up expecting something. Anything. Maybe a call from Kelsey, a text from my father, an apology, even a bad one. But what I got was nothing. The kind of quiet that wraps around you, not like a blanket, but a noose. I made coffee the way I always did. 2 scoops, no sugar. I sat at the counter and stared out the window while condensation crawled down the glass like small regrets. The city outside kept moving. My phone didn't. They'd realize what they did. That was the thought keeping me upright. Surely someone in that house would wake up, see the missing name on the delivery and say, "We went too far." But hours passed, and the silence stretched like smoke through a closed room. Around 11:43 a.m., My phone buzzed. Not a call, a text. Don't take it too personally. You know how she is. My father. He didn't say my name, didn't ask if I was okay. Just a throwaway sentence like he was talking about the weather, like I'd been left off a group bowling night, not a party I paid for. I stared at the screen, then typed, "Did you know she was cutting me off?" I didn't expect much, but I waited anyway. 10 hours later, right before midnight, he finally responded. "I think it's better this way, less tension at the party." I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just let the phone slide out of my hand and land on the floor with a soft thud. That night, I slept without setting an alarm, without brushing my teeth, without bothering to turn off the hallway light. 16 months ago, we sat on his back porch, drinking warm lemonade. It was spring. The grass was already dying. Kelsey had stormed out after a minor disagreement, something about me making her feel small during dinner. I looked at him, desperate. "Why does she treat me like this?" I asked. He took a long sip, avoided my eyes. "Don't poke the bear, honey. Just let it be." That sentence stuck to my ribs. He said it like it was kindness, like warning me off was protection. But what he meant was simple. It's easier to sacrifice the one who doesn't shout. And I didn't shout. Not then. But I remember the exact shade of the cup in his hand, faded navy. I remember the sound of the wind and the half-broken chimes. And I remember how I realized in that moment he had known all along. He always knew. I swallowed that memory like a bitter vitamin, something I didn't want, but maybe needed. This morning, I sat at my counter again. The sun rose the same way. The coffee tasted exactly like the day before, but I didn't look at my phone. Instead, I whispered out loud, just to myself. "You didn't forget me. You chose to leave me out." That was the difference. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't Kelsey acting out or Deirdre being manipulative. It was my father, quietly standing by, letting it happen. This wasn't a miscommunication, it was a habit, a rhythm they'd practiced so long it sounded like truth. But patterns don't survive people who stop participating. And I was done playing the ghost in a family portrait that never had room for me. It wasn't just Kelsey who erased me. It was the man who helped raise me and quietly watched me disappear. I wasn't looking for the email. I had just typed tax receipt into the search bar, trying to find something entirely unrelated. But there it was, forwarded from Kelsey 4 years ago. A chain between her and her college counselor. My name bolded in the subject line. I wrote about my sister, Marlene Ridgway. She's a lawyer in Fort Worth and kind of my role model. My heart didn't jump. It barely stirred, but it tugged, like a dull pull in a muscle long healed, reminding me, it's not over just because you stopped limping. 4 years ago, she had called me late, asking if I'd review her scholarship essay. Her tone was warmer than usual, touched with something that sounded like admiration. "I'm applying for the Women in Leadership Fund," she said. "I wrote about you." I paused. "Me?" "Yeah," she laughed, almost shy. "I mean, you've done a lot. You're smart, independent. It just made sense." That call? It felt like spring breaking through winter. Maybe we were healing. She emailed me the draft. I read it twice. My sister is the reason I believe women can lead without needing permission. She fought for her space. She made her own path. She did it alone. And that's the kind of strength I want to carry. I remember staring at that paragraph, staring so long I forgot to blink. I fixed a few grammar issues, suggested a stronger closing, then hit send and smiled like it meant something more than a red-inked sentence. She won. 2 months later, during dinner at our father's house, someone brought it up. One of Deirdre's friends. "I loved your essay, Kelsey. Your sister's a lawyer, right?" Kelsey laughed. Not a nervous laugh, a polished, controlled laugh. "Oh, I just used that idea for structure. I don't actually have a sister like that." Silence didn't fall. It didn't have time to. The room laughed, lightly, thoughtlessly. I didn't. I sat still, fork paused midair. That moment etched itself into my memory like frostbite, quiet, white, and stinging long after the room warmed up. Later, when everyone was gone, I stayed behind under the pretense of helping with dishes. I heard her in the hallway, whispering to her boyfriend. "It's just easier when I don't have to explain her. She's complicated." The glass I was drying slipped from my hand and cracked in the sink. Now, sitting in my apartment, I reread the forwarded email again. My name on someone else's ladder. She didn't just erase me, she rewrote me into a character, something convenient for the essay, then discarded once it had served its purpose. She used admiration like bait, and I bit. The worst part isn't that she won, it's that I helped her win. The words she used to praise me were never for me, they were weapons. And I handed her the blade. I was looking for a tax form, something dry and forgettable. Instead, I found the bill. $5,000, sent March 2016, Methodist Health System, my father's stroke. I sat there at my kitchen counter, blinking at the faded print, the kind that curls at the corners because time doesn't respect gratitude. I remembered how fast I wired that money. No questions, no hesitation, just the belief that family helps family. Back then, he was too disoriented to talk, so Deirdre handled everything. She called crying. "He collapsed in the kitchen," she said. "We're not ready for this." Neither was I, but I moved. No one asked me to pay, not directly. They just let the silence hang long enough that I filled it with money. 2 weeks later, I visited. The house looked renovated. A brand new sectional in slate gray, modern glass coffee table, matching pillows in coordinated tones, deep blues and burnt orange. A floral arrangement that didn't exist before. Deirdre greeted me like nothing was odd. "We figured, after what he's been through, he deserves to rest somewhere new. You know how energy works, right?" I nodded slowly. She went on. "Sometimes old stuff just holds trauma. You clear it by changing the environment." I looked at my father. He was resting in the recliner, comfortable, silent. Was this covered by insurance too?" I asked. She laughed, light and practiced. "Consider it part of the healing." That line should have set something off in me, but I swallowed it like everything else. I told myself I was being petty, that maybe they did need comfort more than I needed clarity. A week after I wired the funds, my father texted me. "I'll pay you back first chance I get. Love you, sweetheart." It wasn't much, but I saved that text for years. I waited for that chance. One Thanksgiving, I brought it up, quietly, respectfully, just the two of us in the kitchen. "Do you remember the hospital bill?" I asked. He furrowed his brow, like I'd asked what he had for lunch last Tuesday. "I thought that was a gift," he said. No malice, no sarcasm, just expectation. I froze. Then I smiled. The kind of smile that hides an entire storm under your skin. Now in my apartment, that receipt is in front of me. I hold it to the light. The ink is almost gone, but the memory is sharp. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as financing. And worse, I volunteered for it, over and over again. Because I thought that if I gave enough, they'd give me back something that felt like love. I tear the paper down the middle. Then again, the pieces flutter into the trash can like falling leaves. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a business arrangement I never signed up for, and they never planned to honor. 16 years ago, I stood outside my father's church wedding, holding a bouquet I hadn't asked to carry. Deirdre had smiled at me earlier that day, her lips stretched just tight enough to show she didn't mean it. "Be a dear and help with the place cards," she said, before motioning for someone else to check the seating. I never saw a card with my name. Later that week, the official wedding album came out. I flipped through it quietly while visiting. Beautiful photos, elegant setting, everyone smiling. And I was nowhere, not even in the background, cropped out, gone. I heard her voice from the next room, saying it to someone, maybe the photographer. It was better for the symmetry. I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew I wasn't family. I was a shadow they tolerated when the lighting was low. Years later, during a Thanksgiving visit, Kelsey sat beside a group of cousins flipping through her scrapbook. It was her memory project for school, a timeline of childhood. I leaned in, expecting nothing, but there I was, holding her as a toddler, braiding her hair, standing behind her at her 6th birthday, hands on her shoulders, moments I'd forgotten she even remembered. Kelsey caught me looking. "You kept these?" I asked. She shrugged, flipping a page. "You were part of my childhood, not the future." The room didn't fall silent. No one even noticed. That's the part that stuck the most. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, sat on the closed lid of the toilet, and stared at the wallpaper. The scent of cinnamon soap hung in the air like something pretending to be comforting. I whispered, I thought I was erased, but I wasn't invisible, just selectively acknowledged, used when it served the image, erased when it didn't. They hadn't deleted me. They archived me, filed under once helpful, not always loved. I thought about that as I cleaned out a drawer this morning in my kitchen. Found one of the only family photos I still had. I was maybe 21 in it, Kelsey, 9. We were standing on a wooden deck, summer light on our faces. I remember that day vividly. She had just learned how to ride a bike. I bought her the helmet with the purple flames. I hadn't looked at that photo in years. It was tucked behind an old pizza coupon and a magnet from a dental office I'd never used. I held it for a while. My fingers didn't shake. My breath stayed even. Then I slid the photo into a folder and shut the drawer. Not out of anger, out of decision. I won't let them frame me into silence anymore. This time, if I disappear, it'll be by choice, and no one gets to use what I leave behind. In 2020, I made a mistake. I told the truth. It was just a Facebook post, vague, gentle, and honest. A few lines about how it felt growing up in a house where your name was remembered only when a bill was due or a favor was needed. I didn't mention anyone. I didn't tag. I didn't point fingers. Still, within 30 minutes, my phone lit up. Kelsey. Take it down. You're making us look bad. That phrase, us, as if I was the outsider airing secrets instead of someone describing her own life. I stared at the message, rereading it until the screen dimmed from inactivity. Then I turned off my phone. That night, I tossed in bed. It was a new discomfort, not anger, not shame, just shrinking. Again. I'd made myself smaller so many times I wasn't sure I had bones anymore. By morning, the post was gone, but the echo remained. The next day, Deirdre posted one of her little morality bombs. She loved these, vague enough to deny, sharp enough to sting. Some people love playing the victim. Learn to be grateful and stop airing dirty laundry. No names, of course, just enough spice to stir the pot. The comments poured in. That generation is so entitled. She should be thankful someone put up with her. She's always been dramatic. I didn't reply, didn't defend. But that's when it hit me. Silence wasn't dignity. It was complicity. They weren't afraid of lies being told. They were afraid the truth would stop being a secret. Now, 4 years later, I scroll past that memory in my Facebook archive. My heart doesn't spike. My jaw doesn't clench. I just save the post to a folder called Proof and take a screenshot, not for vengeance, for myself. For the day I might forget that even whispers carry weight. They tried to brand me as ungrateful, dramatic, unstable, but I had only ever been quiet. Too quiet. And quiet people are easy to rewrite. Not anymore. I used to think setting boundaries made me difficult. Now I think letting them cross every line without consequence made me disposable. They taught me not to talk, but they never taught me how to unremember. Next time, I don't delete anything. Let them feel uncomfortable for once. If telling the truth makes them look bad, maybe the problem isn't the truth. The call came on a Tuesday, right after I'd stepped out of the shower. My phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen since Christmas. My father. I should have let it ring, but I didn't. "Hey, sweetheart," he began, voice soft, too soft. The kind of soft that usually meant something was coming. "I've been thinking about everything. About the party, about Kelsey, about you." I said nothing, just let him speak. "You know," he continued, "families go through rough patches, but we heal. That's what we do, we forgive, we start fresh." Still, I stayed silent. Then came the twist. "We're really struggling to make her tuition work. I know it's a lot to ask after everything, but would you still be willing to help?" There it was. I clenched my jaw until it ached. "I'll think about it," I lied. That night, as if choreographed, an email arrived in my inbox. Subject line: "Tuition payment info, thank you again." No greeting, no message, just a PDF form with bank details, routing number, account name, like I was some automated transfer service with a heart. I stared at the email for a full 5 minutes before I did anything. Then I hovered over the trash icon and stopped. I archived it instead, took a screenshot, filed it away. They weren't even pretending anymore. 24 hours later, Kelsey chimed in. A text. "I'm sorry if I hurt you. Things just got stressful. I still care." I didn't respond. I didn't even blink. The words were as empty as a thank you card with no signature. The next morning, Trina sent me a screenshot. "Look familiar?" she wrote beneath it. Same message, word for word, same timestamp. Kelsey had accidentally sent it to her too. That's when something in me shifted. Not sadness, not rage, something colder, funnier even, a detached sort of amusement, the kind you feel when you watch a lie trip over itself. I didn't reply to either of them, not to the message, not to the form. Instead, I opened a folder on my laptop titled, "Not My Problem Anymore." Inside it went the screenshot from Trina, the PDF invoice, my father's call log, Kelsey's generic apology, all neat, all filed, all finished. I didn't scream, I didn't curse, I didn't fight. I just closed the folder and whispered, "This is the last invoice you'll ever send me." They didn't lose me because they lied. They lost me because they expected me to pay for the lie. I didn't expect the call to come from Trina. But the second I heard her voice, rushed, breathless, I knew something had broken. "You won't believe what Jamie just told me," she said. Jamie, her cousin, goes to the same university Kelsey was supposed to start at this fall. Kelsey showed up at orientation and found out there's no tuition paid, no plan, nothing in her name. My stomach didn't drop. My pulse didn't spike. I just leaned back in my chair and said, "Go on." "They used the savings," Trina said. "Spent it on that SUV Deirdre's been parading around all year." There it was, confirmation. I was the backup plan they never asked for but always assumed would say yes. They thought you'd cover it, so they spent the rest. Of course they did. That afternoon, a blurry TikTok made its way to me, sent from a mutual friend of a mutual cousin. I watched it without sound at first, then again with the volume up. Kelsey in the front yard, screaming, tears, makeup streaked down her face, throwing a handbag at Deirdre, slamming a car door, slamming another. The caption said, "Kelsey meltdown," but I didn't laugh, because I'd been her once. The difference? No one was filming me when they broke me quietly. By that evening, Trina called again. "She's threatening to sue them," she said, not even pretending to hide her disbelief. "Emotional distress, academic sabotage, maybe even fraud." I didn't say anything. Trina waited. Finally, I said, "And she learned it from the best. The same girl who copied my scholarship essay tone, the same girl who called me a ghost to her friends, the same girl who used me until I stopped paying. Now she was applying the tactics they perfected. On them. That irony didn't taste like justice. It tasted like rot." I opened my laptop, clicked on a folder I hadn't touched in weeks. Family documents. I deleted the final email from Elliot, the one with the tuition PDF. I erased the file, then emptied the trash. I removed the shared Google Calendar we still had, the one he used to drop in birthdays or holiday plans. Gone. Then I sat still, waiting to feel something. Anger, relief, sadness, but I only felt unhooked. They sold my silence, so I sold their illusion. They taught her how to manipulate. I taught myself how to walk away. The silence feels different now. It used to sting, sharp and sudden, like a slammed door. Now it hums quietly in the background of my mornings, like the ticking of a reliable clock. No missed calls, no text bubbles waiting to explode, just peace. Not because they stopped reaching out, because I stopped waiting. I sit on my balcony with a lukewarm mug of coffee and watch the light roll across the sidewalk below. The same sidewalk I used to walk every Sunday before visiting them. Before I learned how thin love becomes when it's only tied to what you can give. They haven't said a word since the blow-up. Not Deirdre, not Kelsey, not my father. Trina hears things through the family vine. Kelsey's lawsuit never made it past the group chat stage. Elliot has been keeping his head down. Deirdre is telling anyone who'll listen that she was protecting the family legacy. Kelsey stopped showing up to class. She's been ghosting everyone but her reflection. I feel nothing about it. Not joy, not vengeance, just a final unhooking. Yesterday I wrote a letter. I didn't mean to, I was just journaling and it poured out of me, a message addressed to all three of them. I didn't curse, I didn't accuse, I thanked them for showing me who I never want to become, for teaching me what love isn't, for reminding me that silence, when used as a weapon, can only hold power if you keep standing still. I folded the letter, lit a match, watched the flame eat the words line by line until they curled into ash. Closure doesn't need to be mailed, it just needs to be felt. This morning, I signed the lease on a small studio space downtown. Nothing fancy, exposed brick, creaky floors, light that spills in like it belongs there. I'm going to paint again. Hope House still gets deliveries from me once a month. Quiet, steady, no thank you notes, no plaques, just smiles. People who don't ask where I came from or why I give. They just say, "It's good to see you." And it is. Good to be seen. They never asked if I belonged. They just welcomed me. I don't think of myself as erased anymore. I think of myself as re-authored. Not by them, by me. Maybe Kelsey will tell her version for years. Maybe Deirdre will cling to hers. Maybe Elliot will never say another word. And maybe that's fine. Because this time, if I'm absent from their story, it's not because I was forgotten. It's because I walked out. Maybe they'll rewrite me again. Maybe not. Either way, I'm not a ghost anymore. Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who teach you how to disappear. But disappearing isn't always a tragedy. Sometimes it's a choice, a declaration that you will no longer shrink yourself to fit into someone else's story. If you've ever felt erased, overlooked, or used only when convenient, let this be your reminder. Your worth is not determined by who acknowledges it. It's defined by how fiercely you refuse to compromise it. Walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom, and peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the absence of begging for space you already earned. What about you? Have you ever had to step away from people who claim to be family? What did that moment feel like? I'd love to hear your story. If this video touched something inside you, leave a comment with the number 1 or tell me where you're watching from. And if you didn't like it, that's okay too. Tell me why. Let's talk about it. And if you want more stories that speak truth and heart, don't forget to subscribe. Your voice matters here. Your story matters here.